In section 2.2.28-T, the accompanying table shows the median household income in dollars for 25 randomly selected regions. We're going to complete parts A through G below. So for part A, we're going to construct a frequency distribution using a first class having a lower class limit of 35,000 and a class width of 5,000. Now, on StatCrunch, when we go to, well, let me show you here. I'll pull up this this data in there. Okay, so I'm going to open up the table in StatCrunch, and if I click here to open up this information in StatCrunch, okay, now in order for me to create a frequency distribution, I'd have to go to Stat and then go to Tables and select Frequency. And then when I select the variable, then that's great. But then I don't have an option to put in a class, lower class, and the width. That only works when you're doing the graphing part. So what we're going to have to do is do this one by hand in the sense of finding out what is the frequency. So what we're going to do is we're starting with a lower class limit of 35,000. And we have a class width of 5,000, so we're going every 5,000, which means then this is going to end at 39,999. So let's go ahead, and we know that we have 5,000 for our width. Okay, and let's find the frequency for 35,000 to 39,999. So we have 1 there, and therefore there's 1. And then we have 40,000 to 44,999. So let's select the 40,000 to 44,999. So we have 43,687. That's 1. That's 2, 3, 4, and there's 5. Then 45,000 to 49,999. So we have 1, 2, and then 3. Okay, and then we have 50,000. Go ahead and color that. This one as well. So now we want to look for 50,000 to 54,999. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Okay, then we have 55,000 and 59,999. So let's see here. We have 1, 2, and 3. And 60,000 to 64,999. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. And 65,000 to 69,999. We have 1. And for the last one, we have 1. Okay, now we're going to construct a relative frequency distribution using a first class having a lower class limit of 35,000 and a class width of 5,000. So when we add these up, okay, we can add them up on a calculator if we like. And let's just do that just so we can see what it looks like on a calculator here. Alright, so we want to add 1 plus 5 plus 3 plus 6 plus 3 plus 5 plus 1 plus 1, and that gives us 25. So we got 1 divided by 25, which gives us the first relative frequency, which is 0.04. And if we continue with that, we got 5 divided by 25, which gives us 0.20. And then we have 3 divided by 25, and that gives us 0.12, and so on. So again, that gives us our relative frequency. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to construct a frequency histogram. So now we're going to go back to StatCrunch and then use that data now. So we're going to go ahead, we have the data pulled up, and we want to make sure that we have our lower class limit and our class width, and we have a median household income. So let's go ahead and graph, go to histogram, we're going to select our variable, we want our frequency, and we know that our lower class limit is 35,000, and we know that our class width is 5,000, and then we're going to call the x-axis the median household income, and then we're going to go ahead and select compute. And then if we compare that to what we have here, then that is correct. So therefore there is our frequency histogram. Now let's go ahead and then create our relative frequency histogram. So we're going to go back to StatCrunch, and now we're going to graph the relative frequency histogram, which with a 35,000 starting point, our width is 5,000, and again we have a median household income. Go ahead and compute that, and then we're going to copy that. So let's go ahead and do that. And so there is our relative frequency histogram. And then we're going to describe the shape of the distribution. Now, for the uniform distribution, the frequency of each value of the variable is evenly spread out across the values of the variable. In a bell-shaped distribution, the highest frequency occurs in the middle and the frequencies tail off to the left and the right of the middle. In the skewed right distribution, the tail to the right of the peak is longer than the tail to the left of the peak. And in a skewed left distribution, the tail to the left of the peak is longer than the tail to the right of the peak. So the frequency distribution is reproduced to the right, which is what we can see here. And so therefore this is considered a bell-shaped because the highest peak is in the middle. And with the highest peak in the middle, we can then go ahead and draw what that bell curve would look like. And that's what the bell curve would look like. And that's the reason why. So now in part F, we're going to repeat parts A through E using a class width of 10,000. So now what we're going to do is we're now going to go from 35,000, and now the next lower class limit is going to be 45,000 because our class width is 10,000, down to 55,000 and to 65,000. So we're going to repeat the same steps. And if we look at the numbers between 35,000 and 44,999, we're going to get 6 for the frequency, and then 9 for the frequency for the second class, 8, and then 2. So again, we're going to do the same thing we did in the first step, but with these different classes with the class width of 10,000. Okay, then in order to find the relative frequency, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the number and the frequency and divide it by the total. So 6 divided by 25 is just 0.24. 9 divided by 25 is just 0.36. 8 divided by 25 is just 0.32. And 2 divided by 28 gives us 0.08. So now we've created the new frequency and relative frequency distribution. Okay, so now we then want to then create the frequency histogram. So let's pull up StatCrunch here. So we have our data already listed in here. I'm going to go ahead and select graph, and then we're going to go to histogram. Okay, we're going to do our variable, and then we want the frequency. Okay, so now our starting point is still at 35,000, but now our width is at 10,000 because we changed that now from the second part. And then if we want, we can put in the median, let's see here, median household income. We're going to compute that. And then we should have our frequency histogram. So we can compare that to the actual solution that you're going to see. Okay, and so this is our frequency histogram. Okay, and then we're going to compare it to the relative frequency. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to come back, go to graph, and then go to histogram again. We're going to select our column, and then we're going to do the relative frequency with, again, the starting point at 35,000 and our width at 10,000. And then we have our median household income. Make sure it's spelled correctly. And then there is our relative frequency. Okay, so there is our graph from StatCrunch. So if you take a look again, you can see that the shape is still going to have a bell-shaped distribution. And so in part G, it says, does one frequency distribution provide a better summary of the data than the other? So in order for you to explain, you want to compare the histograms of the two frequency distributions and then decide whether or not one provides a better summary than the other.